we have multiple rooms. We can change between them. They each have their own list of messages. You know, I haven't actually tried logging out and logging into someone else. I suppose I should do that. Let's log out, log in as b@b.com. Hey there, A. You're in this class too, huh? Even in fake chat messages, I need to correct my typos. Yep, seems to work. LOL. Rafflecopter. Cool. So that all works. The list of rooms is populated dynamically, but the only way to add new rooms right now is through the console. We do, in our room list component, have a method for that, add room. Maggie, would you mind shutting the door real quick? Thanks. So we have a method for that, but it's not being called when we click a button or anything. So let's see if we can do that. That button should probably be in room list, probably like next to where this heading is for the room. Seem reasonable? So let's see here. Here's the H2 where the rooms thing is. I'm just going to put this inside another div. So this div has the H2 that says rooms, and then I'm going to put a button alongside that. And in that button, I think I'm going to put an icon. Let's go to Font Awesome real quick. Font Awesome, let's look at just the free ones. I'll search for a little plus type thing. Here we go. Here's a plus inside a circle. I'd rather it be the outline one, but that one's pro, so solid it is. So we'll use that. Just copy this over. Here that is. But this says class, not class name, right? So class name. And this is not accessible. If they couldn't see the image for whatever reason, they would have no idea what this button does. So I will put a title on there. Add room. What's it complaining about? Oh, I haven't put my closing quotes in. All right, cool. Okay, that looks terrible, but it's there. So I'll make a couple quick styles. So we're already using Aphrodite in here. So my div here, I'll give a class name of, I'll call it styles.heading, which I haven't written yet. I'll probably have to style the button as well. So class name, it's the only button in this component. So CSS styles.button, which I haven't written yet. So I'll add heading and button. I want the H2 and this to be side by side. That's a pretty good clue in my world that I want to use Flexbox, so I'll put display flex on here. I want any space that's left over when you put rooms and this side by side to go in between the two. For that, I do justify content space between. You've all seen the links on the website for if you want to learn more about how Flexbox works, but that's what I want to do. And I want them to be vertically aligned, so I do align items center. For me, if I'm deciding whether I want to use Flexbox to lay something out, two of the fastest ways I make that decision. If I want two things to be side by side, laid out some way, that's by far the easiest way to do that. Much easier than trying to use floats or some nonsense like that. Another way, if I need things to be vertically aligned, that's just a nightmare to do without Flexbox. So in this case, I want both of those things. So it's a no-brainer. As for the button, it has a border and padding and background color and all that stuff that buttons have by default. I don't want any of that stuff. So border, 0. Background color transparent. Outline 0. Padding 0. The font is too small right now. So I'll say font size 1 rem. Let's see where this gets us. Better, but it's black, which is not readable against that super dark gray. So color, I will put most of the colors in this sidebar are, I think they're set to like a transparent white. So I want it to be kind of a really light gray, and which I will do by saying white that is mostly transparent. So 255, 255, 255 gets me white. 0.4 means only 40% opacity. That's pretty good. I want the pointer cursor when I move over it, which is not the default for buttons. So cursor pointer. I need a string. This is not CSS. And a little hover effect would be nice. And since I'm using Aphrodite, I can do that. So :hover. And I will change the color to full-blown white when I do that. And I want it to do that. Well, let's just see that happen. There we go. But I want it to be kind of smooth like this one is. Woo! See the difference? How it gradually turns white. So for that, I just put a transition on here. Transition, the one I used before. I am transitioning only the color property. I want it to do it over 1/4 of a second. And I want it to not do it linearly, but kind of slow down as it nears the end of the animation. So it'll start changing colors real fast, then kind of slow down and change colors real smoothly toward the end. Just looks nice. Look up transition on CSS tricks. Learn that kind of stuff. I'm happy with that. Cool. So we've got a new button. And we want this button to call... Yeah. Yep. I'll copy and paste it. I'll copy and paste this whole component in a sec. So add room is what we want it to call, right? So here's the button. At the moment, I could just make it at least call that and add a hard-coded room just to make it do something. I know that's not what I'm going to have it do long term, but so I could just throw an arrow function in there and call. Is this a class? Yeah. This dot add room and throw in, I don't know, name. Fancy description for fancy talk. I don't know. Just to see if that'll happen. Yep. Now, that'll work once. If I click it again, that room's already there, so nothing will happen. But so here's this so far. I'll paste this component in Slack. Session 2 morning. So what do we want to actually happen when we click the button? We probably want to show a form, right? So we're going to have to type in the name of the thing and the description. So clicking that button shouldn't actually add the room. Clicking that button should show a form. Agree? Does that make sense? So how might we do that? Where would you start? We're obviously going to need to make another component for the form, right? And then clicking the button should show that and hide it. So how should we do that? I'm back in that position where I have no idea if anyone's hearing a word I'm saying. Okay, now I know like 8 people are hearing a word I'm saying. So how do I do it? Let's just talk through it before we actually do it. We'll make a new component for the form that will show and hide the form when we click the button. So what should clicking the button actually do? It's not going to like grab an element from the page and unhide it, right? What's it going to do? What do all our buttons do if they do anything? They like change state or something, right? So we should probably have something in state that controls whether that thing is shown or hidden. And clicking that button will just do that. So we could have something like in state show room form, and it's false by default. So then we could just have methods that change that. So I'll just make a method called show room form, which does this dot set state show room form true. I have another one called hide room form that just does this dot set state show room form false. So what is clicking that plus button actually going to do? It's going to call show room form. So I'll change that. So here's my button on click. Now it's calling add room. We don't need it to do that. We don't need to do that until we actually submit a form. So all our button will do is call this dot show room form. Let's watch this in action. There's no action except in our DevTools, but that's action enough for me. Here's room list. Here's my state. Here's show room form. It's false. I click this button. It's true. So that's all the button's actually going to do. So now that form needs to exist. New component time. Room form. Seems like a good name. It's going to be a form. It's probably going to have to manage some state internally, right? So we'll just make it a class from the get-go because we're going to have to do that whole handle changes thing. So import React and component from React. So class room form extends component. Export default room form. Make a render method that returns some JSX. I'll return a div called room form. Let's put some parentheses there. Whatever else is going to be in here, we know we're going to have a form. The form is going to have 2 text fields and a button. So I'll make a paragraph that has a label for the element name, room name, I'll put an input, type of text, name equals room, or name equals name. There you go. Make another paragraph, and inside that paragraph, I'll put a label for description. Description. I'll put an input, type text, name equals description. We'll probably want a submit button and a cancel button because we need something that's going to hide this form again, right? So I'll put 2 buttons in there. So I'll make a div to stick the buttons in. And I'll put 2 buttons. Cancel. And submit. Or not submit. Submit is a poor label for a button every time. Say what submitting actually does. So create room. Seems good. I don't know if you want to capitalize the R or not. I think probably. So the create room should probably be the submit button, so I'll put type equals submit. The other one should probably not be the submit button, so I will put type equals button. If you don't put type equals button, it will probably default to submit, so we should probably actually do that. It's probably going to be pretty boring looking, but there it is. So inside room list, I need to import that. I'll import it alongside my other component that I'm importing. Import room form from /room form. And let's see. What do I want to do? I want to show that if show room form is true. Otherwise, I want to show all that other stuff. So in my render function, I could just use a plain old if here probably. If this dot show room form, or this dot state, excuse me, this dot state dot show room form. Room form. Else, all this. I forgot I didn't say return. Since this isn't inside my return statement, yeah. So if this.state.show room form, return this JSX. Otherwise, return all this. Seem legit? What's that? Since it's what? Okay. Like, do I need anything around this? Is that what you're asking? Okay. I don't know. Okay, so what happens? Oh, that looks fantastic. I mean, could do it that way.
Do we have it show it shifts down the other rooms, or is that something for another time?
Let's make it work first.
Okay.
So how about making that cancel button work? That part doesn't seem too hard. So we've already got the method for that, right? Hide room form. So let's just pass that in as a prop. Room form, hide room form equals this dot hide room form. And inside room form, here's the cancel button. Just say on click equals, I don't need to prevent default because this is a button, not a submit button. So on click should just be this dot props dot hide room form. No parens. I think. There we go. Yay. Show and hide new room form. That seems like a step in the right direction. Seems like it's worth committing maybe.